HOA, Karen ripped my daughter's leg braces off, screamed, and no medical gear on the lawn. The afternoon sun painted the grass gold, the kind of warmth that usually made our street look like a postcard. My daughter Emily sat near her wheelchair, smiling, the braces on her legs glinting in the light as she adjusted the straps. For a moment, life felt normal, soft wind, birds, her laughter echoing off the houses. Then that peace shattered. "Hey, what do you think you're doing out here?" A sharp voice sliced through the air. Karen, the HOA president, her pastel blouse crisp, her smile nowhere to be found. She stormed across the sidewalk, eyes fixed on Emily. "There are rules in this neighborhood," she barked, pointing toward the sign by the curb, "No unapproved devices." Emily blinked, confused. "But these help me walk," she whispered. Karen's face twisted. "I don't care. That thing is unsightly." Before I could reach them, Karen grabbed the brace. Emily screamed, a piercing, heart-splitting sound. As the Velcro ripped open, the brace came off in Karen's hand like a trophy. My daughter collapsed, clutching her leg, her cries mixing with the chirp of sprinklers and the hum of a passing car. I ran toward them, my pulse pounding. "Let go of her," I shouted, my voice trembling between rage and disbelief. Karen tossed the brace on the grass. "This is private property," she hissed, brushing her palms like she'd just done the neighborhood a favor. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Some filmed. None stepped in. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The moment I realized decency wasn't enough to stop monsters who hid behind HOA rules. If you were in my place, would you have stayed calm? Or would you have fought back? When we moved into Willow Creek Estates, I thought we were stepping into the kind of neighborhood people dream about. Tree-lined streets, tidy driveways, kids on bikes, and neighbors who waved just enough to seem polite. It was the perfect environment for my daughter Emily's recovery. After the accident, her doctor said she needed daily sunlight, gentle exercise, and peace, not pity. Our new home had a wide front yard, a wheelchair ramp I built myself, and soft grass where Emily could sit and practice standing with her braces. Every morning, I'd watch from the porch with my coffee as she tried to take one more step than yesterday. Her laughter, that small bell-like sound, made everything worth it. For the first few weeks, the neighbors seemed friendly enough. Mrs. Dalton from across the street brought over muffins. Mr. Harris offered to help with lawn care. Even the HOA president, Karen Thompson, gave us a welcome packet printed in color, full of rules about fence colors, garbage schedules, and lawn maintenance. She smiled stiffly and said, "We like to keep things uniform here." I didn't think much of it. Rules were fine. After all, we just wanted to fit in. But as days passed, Karen's tone changed. She stopped waving. She started noticing everything: Emily's ramp, the wheelchair, the therapy bench near the porch. One morning, I found a yellow slip taped to our mailbox, violation notice, unapproved exterior structure ramp, must be removed or submitted for HOA approval within 14 days. I sighed and filled out the form, attaching a doctor's note and photographs, thinking it was just bureaucracy. But when I handed the papers to Karen, she smiled, that thin, mocking smile, and said, "We'll review it." Her eyes flicked toward Emily like she was assessing property damage, not a child. That night, Emily asked, "Dad, did we do something wrong?" I forced a smile. "No, sweetheart. Some people just forget how to be kind." If only I'd known that was just the beginning, that behind the manicured lawns and mailbox smiles, someone was ready to turn our safe haven into a battleground. Because in Willow Creek Estates, compassion was optional. But compliance? That was law. It started with whispers, not the kind you hear, but the kind you feel. That subtle shift when people stop meeting your eyes, when the smiles vanish the second you turn your back. One morning, I stepped outside to water the plants and found a folded piece of paper stuck under a rock on our porch. It wasn't a flyer or an ad. It was a handwritten note. Medical clutter, like wheelchairs and braces, must be kept out of sight. This is a neighborhood, not a hospital. No name, no signature. But I recognized the neat cursive, Karen's. I crumpled the note, trying to convince myself it wasn't worth reacting to. Emily was inside, watching cartoons, humming softly to herself. She'd been doing so well in her therapy lately. I wouldn't let one bitter woman ruin that. But it didn't stop there. 2 days later, I caught Karen standing on the sidewalk, phone in hand, taking pictures of our ramp and the folding therapy chair near the garage. "Excuse me," I called out, forcing calm. "Can I help you?" She didn't even flinch, just documenting violations. "The HOA will need to see these." "Violations? It's a medical ramp," I said. She smiled, that cold, condescending smile that made my skin crawl. "Then maybe your daughter's condition should be kept inside. We all have to make sacrifices for the community's image." My chest tightened. For a moment, I was speechless. Emily opened the door behind me, her braces clicking softly against the wooden ramp. "Hi, Miss Karen," she chirped. "Look, I can stand longer now." Karen's eyes narrowed, like Emily's progress offended her. "That's nice, dear," she muttered. Then, turning to me, "You should teach her about boundaries. Public space isn't for personal use." She walked away before I could respond, her phone still recording. That night, I received an HOA email. Formal complaint, unapproved medical equipment visible from street. Attached were the very pictures Karen had taken. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My wife, Mia, read the email over my shoulder, her voice cracking. "She's targeting us." "I know," I said quietly, "but we're not giving her the satisfaction." Still, as I turned off the lights that night, something gnawed at me, the feeling that we'd just been marked. "Before you hear what she did next, tell me, what would you have done? Stay quiet or fight back?" It didn't take long for the whispers to grow into open hostility. By the next HOA meeting, I could feel the shift the moment I walked into the community hall. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. People I'd waved to for weeks suddenly avoided eye contact. On the bulletin board, a fresh printed notice read, "Reminder, keep personal or medical items off lawns and driveways. Maintain neighborhood standards." No signature, but everyone knew who'd written it. Karen stood at the front, clipboard in hand, like she was the mayor of morality. "We're a community of pride and harmony," she declared, glancing my way. "Let's make sure we all contribute to the image that makes Willow Creek beautiful." I clenched my jaw as a few neighbors nodded. Even Mrs. Dalton, the muffin lady, avoided my eyes. When I spoke up, my voice was steady but loud enough to carry. "Are disabled children considered non-contributors now?" The room went silent. Karen smiled, the kind that hides behind false politeness. "Of course not," she said sweetly, "but certain things can make visitors uncomfortable. We all need to think about curb appeal." "Her wheelchair isn't a lawn ornament," I said sharply. Her smile froze. "Then maybe it should stay where it belongs, inside." That was the moment I realized she wasn't just enforcing rules, she was enforcing control. Over the next few days, the harassment deepened. We'd wake up to find our trash cans kicked over or tire tracks near the ramp. Someone left a fake HOA, fine taped to the door, $200, unauthorized medical structure. One afternoon, I saw Karen standing across the street, phone pointed toward Emily as she practiced walking with her therapist. "Karen," I shouted, marching over. "You have no right to film my child." She didn't even blink. "Public property. If you have nothing to hide, why worry?" The therapist looked uncomfortable. Emily's face turned red, tears forming. She whispered, "Dad, can we go inside?" That broke me. That night, I started saving every email, every note, every time Karen's voice carried across the street. I didn't know it yet, but I was already building a case, one that would one day destroy her grip on this neighborhood. Because in communities like Willow Creek, justice doesn't come knocking. You have to drag it to your doorstep. By the time summer rolled in, Karen's obsession had turned personal. Every week brought a new violation. Grass too long. Wheelchair left in view. Therapy equipment creating visual clutter. It was harassment, plain and simple, but dressed up in HOA language. I tried to ignore it, for Emily's sake. But it's hard to pretend everything's fine when your child starts asking if she's embarrassing the neighborhood. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found Emily sitting quietly on the ramp, her braces resting beside her. Her eyes were red. "Dad," she said softly, "Miss Karen told me I shouldn't be outside unless I can walk normal." My heart broke and hardened at the same time. "She said that to you?" Emily nodded, her small hands trembling. I went straight to the next HOA meeting. The community center buzzed with small talk until I walked in. Karen stood at the front again, lecturing about noncompliance and visual harmony. I didn't wait for permission. "You humiliated my daughter," I said, my voice echoing across the room. "She's 8 years old, and she's fighting every day to walk again. And you," I pointed directly at her, "you told her she doesn't belong outside?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face flushed, but she smirked anyway. "You're being emotional," she said coolly. "This is a community matter, not a personal one." "Oh, it's personal," I shot back. "You've crossed every line of decency, and I'm done letting you hide behind your rules." She adjusted her pearls like a queen scolding a servant. "If you can't follow community standards, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for you." For a second, I saw her mask slip, the raw cruelty behind that fake composure. The room was dead silent. Even her supporters looked uneasy. But Karen thrived on dominance. "Meeting adjourned," she announced, slamming her folder shut and walking out as if she'd won. But I saw it clearly now. This wasn't about rules. It was about control, about a woman who needed to feel powerful. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would stop reacting. I'd start documenting. Because monsters like her don't stop when you beg them to. They stop when the world finally sees who they really are. After that explosive HOA meeting, the air around our house changed. People stopped waving. The Daltons across the street began parking their car so close to our ramp that Emily's wheelchair couldn't pass. It wasn't random, it was coordinated. Karen had control, and she loved reminding us. Every few days, she'd inspect our property, snapping photos while pretending to measure our lawn. I could almost hear the click of her camera before she even turned the corner. But I'd learned something important. She thrived in the shadows, using gossip and half-truths. So, if I wanted to fight her, I needed proof. That night, I ordered a small set of smart cameras, discrete ones that could capture both audio and video. I placed one under the porch awning, one facing the driveway, and one near the yard where Emily usually practiced walking. Mia was worried. "You really think this will stop her?" I shook my head. "No, but it'll show the world who she really is." Within a week, the cameras caught everything. Karen standing on our lawn with a tape measure, snapping photos of Emily's braces, her muttering to herself, "Not in my neighborhood," her walking away with that smug, satisfied smile. I saved every clip, labeling them by date and time. It wasn't just evidence, it was ammunition. Then one afternoon, I caught her red-handed. She was bending over near our ramp, slipping another violation notice under the mat. I opened the door quietly and hit record on my phone. "Karen," I said calmly, "you're trespassing." She jumped. "I'm performing an HOA duty." "Your duty ends at the sidewalk," I replied. Her voice dropped into a hiss. "You don't belong here. Neither does that child with her gadgets." Something inside me went cold. "You should leave now." Karen glared, stepping closer, her perfume mixing with the faint smell of cut grass. "You'll regret crossing me." I smiled, the kind of calm smile that hides a storm. "I already have everything I need." That was the first time I saw uncertainty in her eyes. She turned and walked away without another word. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The trap was set, and when she snapped, because I knew she would, she'd do it in front of the whole neighborhood. And this time, the cameras would be watching. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday morning, warm light spilling through the blinds, the faint buzz of sprinklers, and Emily's laughter echoing across the yard. She'd been making real progress lately. Her therapist said she might walk a full 10 steps soon without support. I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, just watching her be a kid again. She wore her favorite yellow dress, the one with the sunflower print, and her braces gleamed silver in the sunlight. Every step she took was careful, wobbly, but proud. She looked up at me, smiling. "Dad, I can stand all by myself." And then the voice cut through the morning. No medical gear on the lawn. Karen, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, marching down the sidewalk like she owned the street. Her blue blouse flashed against the sun, and that look, that mix of superiority and disgust, was back. I stood. "Karen, don't start this again." She ignored me. "This is the third time this week. You've been warned about visible devices." Emily froze, her smile fading. "They're not devices," she whispered, clutching her walker. "They're my legs." Karen's lip curled. "Not out here, they're not." She stormed onto the grass before I could stop her. "I told you people, stop!" I shouted, stepping off the porch. "Karen, you touch her and I swear," but it was too late. Karen grabbed the brace on Emily's left leg, yanking hard. The Velcro tore open with a sharp rip, echoing louder than any scream. Emily stumbled, crying out in pain as her knees buckled. Her wheelchair tipped sideways on the lawn. "Let go of her." I shouted, sprinting toward them. Karen ripped the second brace off and threw it onto the grass. "This is private property. No medical clutter," she barked, voice trembling with rage. The neighborhood came alive, doors opening, blinds shifting. Someone gasped. Another person shouted, but nobody stepped forward. Emily was crying now, clutching her bare leg, trying to crawl toward her wheelchair. I reached them, my hands shaking as I pushed Karen back. "You monster. She's a child." Karen stumbled, but still clung to her clipboard like it gave her power. "You people think rules don't apply to you. Well, they do." "Rules?" I snapped. "She's 8 years old. She's healing." The camera near the porch caught everything, the screaming, the tearing sound, the look in Karen's eyes. Then Emily's therapist, who'd just parked across the street, ran over. "What are you doing?" she yelled, helping Emily back in her chair. She could have dislocated her knee. Karen looked around and realized, for the first time, she wasn't in control. The phones were out. The neighbors were recording. Her confidence cracked. She shouldn't be. This isn't. Go home, Karen," I said coldly. "And pray the police see it before I do." She froze, eyes darting toward the cameras. For a split second, fear replaced arrogance. Then she turned and stormed off, muttering about ungrateful residents. I knelt beside Emily, who was sobbing quietly. "It hurts, Daddy," she said through tears. I held her close, my heart splitting with guilt and fury. "I know, baby. It's over. She won't hurt you again." But as I looked up at the neighbors filming from their porches, I realized something else. It wasn't just over. It was recorded. Every cruel word, every violent second. The truth was out there now, waiting to burn her carefully polished reputation to ash. That was the day Karen crossed a line she could never step back from. And it was also the day I stopped being afraid of her. The street fell silent after Karen stormed off, leaving chaos in her wake. The only sounds were the soft sobs of my daughter and the whirring of the sprinklers still ticking in the distance, ordinary noises that felt painfully out of place against what had just happened. Emily clutched my arm tightly as I lifted her into the wheelchair. Her left leg was trembling. I could already see faint red marks where Karen had torn the brace away. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Did I do something bad?" That question crushed me harder than anything Karen had said. "No, sweetheart," I murmured, holding back tears. "You did nothing wrong." She did. The neighbors lingered at their doors, silent witnesses frozen by guilt, phones in hand, eyes wide, but not one of them came forward. Not one asked if Emily was okay. In that moment, I understood what fear looked like in suburbia. It wore politeness like armor. Emily's therapist knelt beside her, checking her leg. "She needs to go to the hospital," she said gently. "Now." As I carried my daughter into the car, the weight of everything hit me. The months of humiliation, the notes, the insults, and now this. The sun, once warm and welcoming, felt harsh and cruel, burning against my skin like accusation. I glanced at the porch camera before driving off. The red light blinked steadily, recording, storing, witnessing. That tiny blinking that felt like the only ally I had left. At the hospital, nurses rushed Emily into a room. The doctor examined her and sighed heavily. No fractures, he said, but severe bruising and strain. Whoever did this used a lot of force. Mia arrived minutes later, breathless, eyes wet. When she saw Emily's scraped legs, she turned pale. She ripped them off, she whispered. Both of them, I said, my voice breaking. Mia covered her mouth, shaking. We're pressing charges? I nodded. I already called the police. They're meeting us at home. As Emily finally drifted to sleep, her small hand gripping mine, I stared at the sterile white ceiling and made another promise to myself. This wasn't going to end with tears or sympathy. It would end with justice, loud, public, undeniable. Because in a neighborhood where everyone pretended not to see, I was about to make sure everyone saw everything. When we got back home from the hospital, the flashing red and blue lights painted our white porch in waves of justice and disbelief. Karen's perfect neighborhood suddenly didn't look so perfect anymore. Two officers stood by the curb, talking quietly to a cluster of neighbors who'd seen everything, or at least filmed it. Officer Ramirez approached me first. Sir, we've received multiple reports of an assault. Can you walk us through what happened? I nodded, still clutching the hospital papers in my hand. Karen Thompson, HOA president. She attacked my daughter, ripped off her medical braces twice. The officer's brows tightened. You have proof. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera feed. The video showed everything: Karen's approach, her shouting, the violent motion as she yanked the braces off, Emily's scream, and my rush to stop her. The sound alone made Ramirez wince. He called his partner over immediately. You said she's the HOA president? Yeah, I said bitterly. Guess she thought that gave her the right to play God. The partner shook his head. This is assault on a disabled minor. We'll file charges tonight. Neighbors started gathering again, but this time they weren't whispering. They were watching the officers take notes, take statements, take action. One of them, Mrs. Dalton, approached with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. I should have stopped her. I nodded, tired but grateful. You can still help, give your statement. Please. While the officers collected witness testimonies, one of them returned with a printed still from a neighbor's doorbell camera. It captured the exact moment Karen's hand gripped Emily's leg brace, her face twisted with fury. This will help, he said. Mia stepped onto the porch beside me, holding Emily close. She's going to jail for this, right? Assault, child endangerment, hate-motivated harassment. Ramirez ticked off the charges quietly. She won't get away with it. As they left, I stood there in the fading sunlight, staring at the patch of grass where it happened, where my daughter's screams had echoed just hours earlier. The braces lay on the porch now, bent and scarred, silent witnesses to everything. That night, my phone buzzed nonstop. The footage had already spread. Neighbors, parents, and local pages were sharing it under one caption: HOA president attacks disabled child over neighborhood rules. For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. The same cameras Karen once used to intimidate us had now turned into her downfall. And by morning, every news van in town would be parked right outside her perfect little house. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood, that sterile scent of control and consequence. Rows of folding chairs creaked as neighbors from Willow Creek Estates filled the back seats, murmuring like school children waiting for detention. The same people who once hid behind their blinds were now here to watch. Karen sat at the defense table, still perfectly dressed, pearl necklace gleaming against her pale blue blouse. But her composure looked fragile now, cracked porcelain hiding the tremor in her hands. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Emily sat between me and Mia, her braces newly fitted, her small hands gripping mine tightly. She looked calm, stronger, somehow, even though her feet barely touched the courtroom floor. The prosecutor began with the footage. The moment the video played on the screen, the room fell into a vacuum of silence. There it was, Karen's voice, shrill and cruel. "No medical gear on the lawn." Then the tearing sound. Emily's scream. The image of Karen ripping the brace away. Karen's attorney tried to object, arguing about context and misinterpretation, but the judge shut it down with a single look. When it was my turn to testify, I stood at the podium and looked directly at Karen. "All we wanted," I said, "was a place where my daughter could heal. She's 8 years old. She's been through surgeries, pain, months of therapy. And this woman decided that her medical gear was an eyesore." Karen avoided my gaze, staring instead at the table. "She didn't just break rules," I continued. "She broke a child's spirit. She made my daughter afraid to step outside." I could feel the entire courtroom leaning in. Even the jurors looked shaken. Then the prosecutor called Emily to the stand. My heart twisted, but she insisted on speaking. Her voice was small but clear. She told me I shouldn't play outside because I look wrong. The judge's expression softened. "And how did that make you feel, sweetheart?" Emily looked down for a moment, then whispered, "Like I shouldn't exist." That single sentence rippled through the room. Karen's lawyer closed his eyes. Even Karen's husband, sitting a few rows back, dropped his head into his hands. When the defense tried to spin it, claiming Karen lost her temper because she feared liability, the prosecutor fired back. She didn't fear liability. She feared difference. By the end of the day, there was nothing left to defend. The judge's gavel came down hard. "Mrs. Thompson, this court finds you guilty of misdemeanor assault, harassment, and discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act. You are hereby sentenced to community service, fined $10,000, and permanently removed from any position within the Willow Creek HOA. A stunned silence followed. Then, slowly, applause began, hesitant at first, then stronger. Even the bailiff didn't stop it. Karen's face went pale. She turned once, looking toward me, maybe expecting me to look triumphant. But I didn't. I just looked done. Because revenge wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wanted peace. As the bailiff led her out, her shoes clacking against the marble floor, I felt Emily's hand squeeze mine. "Daddy," she whispered, "can we go home now?" I smiled down at her, eyes stinging. "Yeah, baby, let's finally go home." When we stepped out of the courthouse, the sky was heavy with clouds, the kind that look like they're holding their breath before a storm. News vans lined the sidewalk, cameras flashing as microphones turned toward us. I didn't want fame. I just wanted closure. Reporters called out, "Do you think the sentence was enough? Will you be suing the HOA? Is your daughter okay?" I didn't answer any of them. Emily was gripping my hand, and that was the only thing that mattered. She wore her new braces, this time a light lavender color, a soft contrast against the gray sky. Each step she took was deliberate, proud, unafraid. Across the street, Karen stood beside her car, flanked by her attorney. Her face was ghost white. She looked smaller now, the arrogance stripped away. For the first time, she looked human and terrified. Our eyes met. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The crowd noise faded. Just her and me. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, maybe to defend herself, maybe to beg, maybe to blame. But I raised a hand, stopping her cold. "You don't get to speak anymore," I said quietly, my voice steady. "You already said enough when you tore those braces off." Her jaw trembled. She turned away, hiding her face from the cameras, and climbed into her car. As the vehicle pulled out of the parking lot, something in me loosened. The anger that had sat in my chest for weeks began to fade, replaced by something heavier. A kind of grief for everything that had been lost. Not just Emily's safety, but our belief that good neighborhoods meant good people. Mia wrapped an arm around me. "It's over," she whispered. "Yeah," I said softly. "But the lesson stays." The following week, the HOA board announced Karen's permanent removal. A public apology was posted on the neighborhood website, signed by every board member except her. It read, "We failed to protect a child under our care. We failed as neighbors." That apology didn't erase the trauma, but it mattered. Neighbors who once looked away now brought over flowers and meals. Emily received handmade cards from local schools, some drawn in crayon, with words like "You're so brave." And keep walking, hero. And Karen? Her house went up for sale. Rumor was she moved out of state. Nobody missed her. On Emily's next therapy day, she took 10 full steps across the driveway. The same driveway where she once cried, terrified, now echoed with laughter. I filmed her walking, this time not for proof, but for memory, because justice had been served. But more importantly, my daughter had learned that even when the world tries to break you, you can stand again. It's been 6 months since that day in court, and sometimes when the wind blows across our new neighborhood, I can still hear echoes of the past, the hum of sprinklers, the rustle of leaves, and the faint sound of Emily's laughter returning to what it used to be: pure, unguarded, free. We moved away from Willow Creek Estates 2 weeks after Karen's sentencing. We packed quietly, no goodbyes. The neighbors who once filmed in silence stood at their porches, watching, waving awkwardly. I didn't wave back. Some things don't deserve closure, they deserve distance. Our new home sits on a cul-de-sac near a wide open park. Every morning, sunlight pours across the kitchen table where Emily does her physical therapy exercises. She's walking now without fear, slower than most kids, but stronger with every step. Her new therapist calls her the comeback kid. I just call her my hero. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the porch, looking at her old braces. They were dented, scratched, and bent at the hinges, relics of that terrible day. Do you want me to throw those out? I asked gently. She shook her head. No, I want to keep them, she said. They remind me I can stand up again. That hit me harder than I expected, because that's exactly what this whole story became. Not about vengeance, but about standing back up. Sometimes people online still message me after seeing the video. They tell me it opened their eyes, that they never realized how cruel small acts of prejudice can be. And each time I read those words, I realized something. Karen didn't just expose herself, she exposed a truth about every community that values image over humanity. I still keep one of the braces on my office shelf, not as a symbol of pain, but of survival. Every time I glance at it, I remember that moment when the cameras blinked red and caught evil in daylight. And I remember how, in the end, good didn't just win, it endured. As for Emily, she doesn't talk about Karen anymore. She talks about the dance recital she's training for, about the yellow dress she wants to wear again. And every evening, as the sun dips low and she takes a few more steps on the porch, I find myself smiling, because she's walking toward her future, and this time, nothing and no one will ever stop her.